Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is indeed the Chad Benson Show. I, however, am not Chad Benson. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Chad is on vacation. He will be back after the holiday. Much-deserved vacation for Chad. More sad news, more confusing news. There's a black man who was killed or died, or I don't know the exact logistics of how it all happened, of course. As I continue to say on the air, I think it is important to wait for every detail to come out, but this sounds horrible. It sounds very similar to a narrative we've heard a lot now recently. A black man died of asphyxiation after police officers in upstate New York tried to take him into protective custody. They pinned him to the ground while restraining him. This is obviously very similar in description to what happened to George Floyd almost exactly 2 months ago. The curtain was lifted on the death of a 41-year-old man by the name of Daniel Prude at a late morning news conference at which Prude's family and local activists called for the officers involved to be fired in his homicide. There are additional stories, I think, out of Washington, D.C., several other areas where this is becoming either a daily, a weekly, a month, some amount of time goes by, and sadly, another story just like this seems to hit the news. And it's causing a lot of very valuable conversations, of course, in all different kinds of communities, valuable things as far as peaceful protesting and what have you go. And a lot of other things are happening in communities that may be much less successful in getting the message across that there is change that's needed in our society. I thought it was interesting, though, that in light of some of these stories, we also had Attorney General William Barr on television last night talking with Wolf Blitzer about quite a few different things. And actually a couple of these stories, a couple of the biggest ones, George Floyd and Jacob Blake, both came up during that conversation. And Attorney General Barr wanted to make a point well understood to Wolf Blitzer and to everyone, I imagine, about the difference even in those two stories and the difference moving forward. And then also just his opinion about some of the ways that maybe there is a misconception, at least according to William Barr, as far as policing goes and the kind of narrative that's taking over on a national scale. And again, I say all this after fully understanding the story I just gave about what happened in New York and what seems to be a consistent, as I said, very horrifically, you wait a few days, a few weeks, and another story like this seems to hit the news. And I am confused. I think my producer and I were just talking about it before the show as to how something like this could continue to occur in general, or most specifically right now, when I think law enforcement officials would know that there's such heavy scrutiny on the actions they take. I would assume that even in situations where police officers did become in some amount of jeopardy, I would assume that more caution would be used than ever, maybe to the detriment of policing, but certainly not the opposite, or at least more of the same, which may be what we're getting. But let's get to some of this interview. Wolf Blitzer talked to Barr, and one of the first moments where I think we knew that this conversation would be a little different than even Wolf Blitzer expected was right here.
How do you think African-American parents around the country explain to their kids what exactly happened to Jacob Blake, for example, and why that police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the Blake case.
Why not?
Because I think it's different than the Floyd case.
What's different?
Well, Floyd was already subdued, incapacitated, in handcuffs, and was not armed. In the Jacob case, he was in the midst of committing a felony, and he was armed. So that's a big difference from the standpoint.
His family says he wasn't armed.
So right there, first, there is the stark comparison drawn between what, in Attorney General Barr's opinion, are very different occurrences. One in which, of course, George Floyd, the one that kind of started, I guess, our most recent focus as a society, as a nation, as cities that are protesting or whatever. As all this is going on, obviously George Floyd is sort of the catalyst to that. And the video of the death of George Floyd is the catalyst to that, because it just seems so utterly inappropriate and confusing when you watched it that it could end the way it did. And according to Barr, and obviously with all details not fully out as far as Jacob Blake or anyone else is concerned, those stories are different. And so I think as investigations continue in every single one of these things that hits the news, it's valuable to continue to wait for all that information to come out. Wolf Blitzer is about to point out, as you heard a little bit, that the family for Jacob Blake contests some of the things that Attorney General Barr just said, but that is not necessarily proof either way as to what the exact details are in that situation. But let's get back to more of that conversation.
Well, I think
there may have been a knife in the car, but he wasn't armed when he was shot.
Well,
that's what his family and his lawyers said.
I've stated what I believe is to be the difference, and that's why I don't want to talk about them as if they're interchangeable. Okay. Now, I did say that I do think that there appears to be a phenomenon in the country where African Americans feel that they're treated when they're stopped by police frequently as suspects before they're treated as citizens. I don't think that necessarily reflects some deep-seated racism in police departments or in most police officers. I think the same kind of behavior is done by African-American police officers.
I know that now, if you're listening to this and you disagree with Attorney General Barr, this is probably a tremendously uncomfortable conversation to continue listening to. However, I know that there are some people who agree with the Attorney General as well as far as what may be causing these issues. And certainly this has gone viral. I see it covered a lot of places today. So I know that this will get a lot of attention the way of the Attorney General. Actually, it's interesting because something else that he talked about that I thought would be a bigger story as well, it pales in comparison to this, but maybe rightfully so. Here is just the tail end of Barr trying to explain that last point he made about how he feels maybe right now the narrative on a national scale is a little bit different than reality.
I think there are stereotypes. I think people operate very frequently according to stereotypes, and I think it takes extra precaution on the part of law enforcement to make sure we don't reduce people to stereotypes. We treat them as individuals.
That is, I think, a welcome statement to anyone that did disagree with everything Barr said in between the two different comments that he was making, the two different questions he was answering. But I think it does go back to more so than anything else. In your opinion, make it your own. I'm not going to dictate to you how to feel about a thing as serious and as important as this. I will just share with you the feeling I have that I just need as much information as I possibly can. That's me. I don't want to tell you how to do it. This is me trying to be woke, trying to let everybody be their own person. But I think that the biggest detriment our society has, not maybe just specific to this story, and partially kind of sort of to the Attorney General's point, is that there's such a rush to perceive things a certain way based on the availability for limited amounts of information on a public scale, limited amounts of information on places like the internet. And so then a narrative can emerge on a national scale and things can all get kind of lumped into the same conversation, when in reality, maybe we have varying amounts of information, varying amounts of understanding to each one of these sentiments that were to each one of these stories, each one of these events that we're discussing as a society. So it is valuable and interesting information for the two of them to cover and for the Attorney General to put a position out there that you probably don't hear quite as often as the opposite position. Also on this, during this conversation, in this interview, part of what was addressed was President Trump talking about a desire for the Attorney General to investigate certain individuals. And Wolf Blitzer puts the question in interesting terms. He tries to insinuate that what was happening was a lot of pressure on William Barr and that it was inappropriate. And Barr responded fairly interestingly to that as well. Here's part of that conversation.
Is it appropriate for the President of the United States to be putting pressure on you in the way he clearly did?
I don't feel any pressure from that.
Mic drop already. That the first couple sentences, and then William Barr says, I don't feel any pressure, and Wolf Blitzer's going to go on the defensive now, try to figure out how to navigate around that answer and still get the point he's trying to make.
You don't think he's trying to pressure you into going forward with indictments and criminal charges and stuff like that?
No, that's, when we talk in private, he doesn't talk like that. So.
I think it's interesting. I think the Attorney General is a very matter-of-fact kind of person, and he doesn't necessarily worry about how people perceive those matter-of-fact comments that he makes, as evidenced a little bit ago by him having an opinion fairly openly that maybe some wouldn't share But here, let's continue with this.
He doesn't talk like that to you privately, but publicly he is. But is it appropriate for a president of the United States to be speaking like that publicly about the sitting attorney?
What do you think is inappropriate about what he said?
Well, let me play another clip. This is what he said.
I don't even want to hear the other clip. He jumps back to another time where Trump says essentially the same thing. But I love the fact that William Barr, in an interview on CNN, is willing to ask the interviewer the question, what do you think? Isn't it like, what are you leading me toward? Where is this question going in your mind? And what answer are you hoping to get? They play more audio for the Attorney General, and he continues to react to it.
Bill Barr can go down as the greatest Attorney General in the history of our country, or he can go down as just an average guy. It depends on what's going to happen.
I see you smiling, but...
well, I sort of responded to that by saying that, if I was really concerned about being politically correct, I wouldn't have joined the administration. And also, I held a press conference and said that neither President Obama or Vice President Biden were under investigation.
But is it appropriate, though?
That's how I responded.
But is it appropriate? And you've worked for another president.
I love to hear the sound of this right now, by the way, as the stumbling happens and as Wolf Blitzer is going to ask the same question for a fifth time, is him in the back of his mind like, come on, man, I have a trap all set up here. I need you to say the thing so we can run it all day long on CNN. I got the producers in my ear. We need the clip so we can have breaking news. Why are you not giving me the clip?
President George H.W. Bush, is it appropriate for a president to be urging you to launch criminal investigations against his political opponents?
Well, he has. I didn't take that as launching a criminal investigation. We're reviewing the Russiagate thing, and I think he's interested in the results of it. But I didn't think it was appropriate for either Vice President Biden or Kamala Harris to call for the charging of a police officer before that matter is reviewed and all the facts are in.
Oh, that's not the clip we wanted. That's not what Wolf was fishing for the whole time. Barr went a different way at the end there. I think that is a tremendous textbook on how to handle a conversation, how to handle an interview in which someone may be trying to trap you into one answer, and that's an answer you don't want to give. What is not a textbook version of that very same idea would be Nancy Pelosi answering questions from the press about her haircut, about her blowout that she got recently. There's a lot of stumbling, a lot of stuttering, and most importantly, a few of the positions she takes, things like she was set up, things like she doesn't need to talk about it anymore, or maybe there's a lot going on that we don't know about, are positions the president often takes that get criticized so heavily by everyone that opposes him, including Nancy Pelosi. If you listen to this closely and in your mind start to think about the ways in which the president has maybe said some similar things and been attacked for those similar things, you can hear all those narratives popping up. Here's part of the conversation as Nancy tries to field and then also kind of dodge some of the questions by saying that she's only really going to answer the question once, even though she's asked it again and again, and she keeps coming back to it because, Nancy, we're all very interested in why you got a haircut and why you didn't know that you weren't allowed to get a haircut in San Francisco.
When they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
How could you not check to see, like, say you don't know. Say you go to San Francisco and you don't know, like, they're all closed down. How could you not check to see what the government officials, as a government official, are saying is and isn't okay? Why would you just trust the owner of the salon? You call them, you're like, hey, can I make an appointment? They say yes. All right, that's enough. I don't need to go down any of the other types of investigations that I should as a government official to see if this is something that's allowed right now by the city of San Francisco. Continue, Nancy.
We have to get our country moving again. And I will not...
Okay, wait, right there. We have to what now?
We have to get our country moving again.
Open it back up. That's what I just heard. I don't know if that's what she said, but that's what I just heard. Let's open everything back up. That is not necessarily what she means, but we have to get our country moving again. I've heard that somewhere before. Someone else has said it. Here's a little bit more of what Nancy's saying in order to get away from the narrative that she had a haircut and that's not a good thing and get back to the talking points that she's such a big fan of.
And I will not let this subject take away from the fact that we have 180,000 plus people who have died from this virus since we passed the bill.
Okay, and then she's just going to keep going down the conversational hole that they all go down, which is these are the bad things. We keep forgetting the bad things. We got to get back to seriousness. But Nancy, I think you made a great point.
We have to get our country moving again.
We do. We have to get the country moving again. We have to have businesses that can operate, and we have to have haircuts that can happen in San Francisco, apparently. All right, this is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for today.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. Really quick, I want to play a little bit of the audio with the chicken wing guy. This guy is amazing. He's my new favorite guy.
Lincoln has the opportunity to be a social leader in this country. We have been casually ignoring a problem that has gotten so out of control that our children are throwing around names and words without even understanding their true meaning and treating things as though they're normal. I go into nice family restaurants and I see people throwing this name around and pretending as though everything is just fine. I'm talking about boneless chicken wings. I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Excuse me. Come on.
You know what the best moment is? Right there. That's the best moment. The guy laughing and then this.
Remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Excuse me. Come on.
Come on.
I propose that we rename boneless wings in the city of Lincoln. We can call them buffalo-style chicken tenders. We can call them wet tenders. We can call them saucy nugs or trash.
I also love saucy nugs or trash and then the little smirk.
We can take these steps and show the country that where we stand and that we understand that we've been living a lie for far too long.
This guy is the best guy. Who wants to take him to Buffalo Wild Wings and just have a chat? That, to me, would be something else. That's out of Lincoln, Nebraska. The guy was talking to the city council there after about 2 hours of those kind of local government hearings, and he came up and as straight-faced as anyone has ever delivered that set of comments he gave them. The New York Times has done excellent reporting on this guy in the last 24 hours. He was being serious, according to the interview he's done there. I don't often say the New York Times got it right, but in this case, very right. Chicken wing guy's my favorite. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for today. Chad is back next week after the holiday. Andrew Cuomo went a little off script. Andrew Cuomo is the kind of guy out of New York that says things matter of fact. He's been celebrated for it, actually, several times. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. He's a New Yorker. What are you going to do? You just got to... I'm going to do my accent every so often. I'm from Jersey, and I know it's not the same to anyone that's in New York right now and is like, this guy's an idiot. But anyway, here's Andrew Cuomo, who may also create the reaction, this guy's an idiot, with the things he said. And by the way, just real quick, for anyone that's a bit of a TV buff, this is an episode of West Wing. This is an early episode of that TV show where some politician sort of kind of threatens the president via an interview, and then they have a whole crazy reaction episode to how terrible that is. Go back and watch it, Andrew Cuomo. But here's what he said.
He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York. Forget bodyguards. He better have an army.
That's the president of the United States he's talking about. Donald Trump cannot come back to New York without an army because he would be in danger
if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York.
From the point of view of New York City, this has been the worst president in history. Look, the best thing he did for New York City was leave. Good riddance. Let him go to Florida. Be careful not to get COVID.
By the way, the amount of jokes that Cuomo makes about COVID-19, him and his brother, the amount of jokes they make about COVID-19 is very strange. But this first part is just, is it a threat in your opinion? Is this Andrew Cuomo kind of sort of threatening the president, which is what the West Wing episode is all about? Or is this just a guy getting very candid and being, honest about what he thinks? No one would attack the president of the United States if he were on the streets of New York. I guarantee that. You know why? Something called the Secret Service. That is a reason that no one would try to attack the president. Plus, the Secret Service operates in a way where they don't put a president in jeopardy, so things would be very protected. He could walk any street he wants, and he does, in fact, have an army, Mr. Cuomo. Not that he'd ever want to utilize it out in public like that. But here, one more time, the beginning part of that statement, which is getting a lot of places.
He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York. Forget bodyguards. He better have an army.
Just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me to say things like that at all. Even if you think that you're being, the kind of guy that'll just say it like it is and understand what things are. That's the president of the United States. There's got to be some moment in the back of your brain where you're like, I should probably pump the brakes on this idea, but no. Back to the salon situation. At least that's what I'm calling it, the e-salon situation. Nancy Pelosi gets her haircut, gets a blowout. I don't know what all's entailed in that, but I guess at some point she's got to get a shampooing. And she didn't have her mask on. Video went out. And then the salon owner, her name is Eric Caius. She was on with Tucker Carlson last night. He asked her a lot of questions about how she probably set up Nancy Pelosi. I think they were all, tongue-in-cheek there because there's not really a lot of ways you could do that as a salon owner that's not setting up the appointment. And apparently Nancy has gone there a very long time. And also, Nancy probably should be aware of what the government is saying isn't safe in places like San Francisco. But here's part of what Erica said, while talking about this situation on Tucker Carlson last night.
How do you feel about seeing the most powerful woman in America come into your salon in violation of the rules she supports, get caught, and then blame you for it?
To be honest, it was more hurtful just to see her come in, and especially not wearing the mask. That's what really got to me. And I just thought about, my staff and people not being able to work and make money and provide for their families. And if she's in there comfortably without a mask and feeling safe, then why are we shut down? Why am I not able to have clients come in?
Look, that's a great question. You got to be honest. Nancy Pelosi would have to be honest if she asked that question, although she'd probably direct you somewhere else and then tell you about the amount of people who are having serious illness from COVID-19 on a daily basis and how Trump screwed everything up. But the truth is, I don't know how you answer that question any other way than, if I felt safe enough, even if the moment that we have in the video is the only moment she's not wearing a mask, which I'm not sure that I believe, but that is something that Nancy has said as well, that her hair was getting washed in a salon in one of those bucket things. How could she possibly wear a mask during that moment? I mean, truthfully, I think that you could. But that doesn't matter here. What does matter is that if she felt safe enough as just one person, one at a time, to go indoors, to interact with individuals, and to have her hairstyle all set up for the television, why can't other people? Why can't they? And the right reaction, by the way, from Nancy Pelosi to all this is not the things that she's doing. It's not the things she's saying, a lot of which sound very similar to what she criticizes the president for saying. I actually have a little bit more of the audio from the interview she gave about just reacting to and all the different press people's questions about the setup that she claims all this is. But the right answer is, I tried to pretend that I deserve things that other people don't. This is the Chris Christie situation, right? Chris Christie shuts down a beach and then takes his family there. That's not a good move. That's not a good look. You don't want to do that. You should not do this. You shouldn't be part of the government that is imploring everybody to shut down way more often than some people, certainly some experts, feel you should. And then partaking in the stuff you're not letting the business owner actually do, and you're not letting customers actually also get the experience. You're being privileged in a way that as a government official you should not be. That's what she should say. I made a mistake, error of judgment. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have been willing to do it. I thought that everything was safe, and maybe we'll now reevaluate our position on what is and isn't safe. That'd be great. Even if you don't actually do anything, just say I'll reevaluate it, because there's no way you shouldn't be after we catch you doing this. But here's a little bit more what Nancy is saying to the press, which I thought was tremendously interesting, because again, just put on the mental cap that this is the president talking about any of the things he is accused politics of setting up against him, and any of the things that he has more information on than he's willing to share at the moment. And you'll hear a very, very similar set of answers from Nancy.
I said that's the answer I'm going to answer. That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to answer. Do you have any questions about the fact that people are dying, that schools need to open, and the rest? I feel your question and your question are an opportunity, and I thank you for them. An opportunity to say they should. There's more to this that I'm not going into as to the motivation of a salon to say to me, yes, come in.
There's more to this than I'm going into.
An opportunity to say they should. There's more to this that I'm not going into as to the motivation of a salon to say to me, yes, come in, and then they go from there. It was clearly a setup.
Okay, I wanted to react, but then I needed a second because my brain is so, I love it. I love every part of it. First, there's more to this than I'm going to tell you about. There's some other stuff going on you don't know about. That sounds like somebody that she's very critical of. And then after that, she talks about how it's the salon's fault for allowing her, the customer, to go ahead and have her hair done there. Why wouldn't the customer be as aware as the salon of what is and isn't allowed in places like San Francisco? Why, as a government official who's aware that the government is taking a role that some feel is inappropriate in telling us what we can and can't do in our society right now, what businesses can and can't function, why wouldn't you check on those and decide not to go because you see what the government in San Francisco is saying isn't allowed right now? They're not allowed to be open. The salon's not deciding not to be open and then breaking the rule for a day. The salon is breaking a rule that you could easily have figured out on your own, Nancy Pelosi, and you choose not to do that and just trust the salon? Can we all say that? If every single one of us goes and does something that right now is not necessarily okay according to our local government, can we just be like, wow, I don't know. That guy opened up for me, so I went into the bar and had drinks. I thought that was okay because he was open. That doesn't make any sense.
I take responsibility for falling for a setup by a neighborhood salon that I've gone to for years. And that's really...
You know what's really important about that sentence, too, and I'm just going to keep jumping in. I don't care. You're going to get a sentence of this at a time. Is she essentially just said, I trusted they weren't going to do this to me. She didn't tell you that this wasn't right or wasn't wrong. In the saying, I've been going there for years, she essentially tipped her hat to the idea, I really thought I could get away with this. Because that's the whole point of that sentence. It's not necessarily that it makes it any less or more legal because you've been going there for years. I didn't see the addendum in any kind of these businesses have to be shut down unless you've been a longtime client, then you're allowed in. What it truthfully is her brain accidentally saying in a different way than she intends to say, I never thought they'd put this video out there in the world.
What it is. So, again, I think we should use it as an opportunity to say there's so many people. I don't know where you all get your hair cut or whatever it is.
In San Francisco, at home right now. We can't go to the salons like you, Nancy. So right now, our hair is cut some other way that we wish it wasn't cut that way. We'd love to go to East Salon with you, Nancy. That's where they get their hair cut.
But we have a wealth of people who are engaged in these services. And again, the state and the city, depending on the incidence of infection in those areas, decide how they will function.
Oh, they do. The state and the city decide how they will function unless you have a salon telling you it's okay to go into there, and then you go to that one and you trust that they know what they're doing. It makes no sense. This is a circle conversation in which she's demonstrating all the reasons she should have known better, and then also trying to use some of them as defenses. And then saying, and my favorite part was when she thought that the salon owed her an apology for tricking her. You're a government official at the forefront of this conversation, and you wouldn't be proactive enough to understand whether or not it's allowed in San Francisco to go in a salon and have a haircut inside. That's not something you'd be aware of, Nancy. I feel very bad for the team that preps you now for any conversation you give publicly, because apparently they're doing the heavy lifting. Apparently you're not going and researching anything on your own if this is too challenging for you, and if the only way in which you would have known better is if the salon had told you up front, a salon you've gone to for years would have been honest with you and said, no, we're not allowed to be open. Then and only then would you know? None of this makes sense. And the fact that so many people are saying this is just picking on her for something that's not that big of a deal, it is the point in all this. That is the problem, is these businesses desperately need to be open to sustain their way of living. The business owners, the people that work in these places need that income in order to survive. And it is being discounted as much as anything else is being discounted in this conversation. When we say public health is more important, we need to save lives, shut down economies, we are completely negating the value of people having incomes and being able to put food on their table. And we're doing it all over again in trying to justify Nancy Pelosi breaking the rules because she's Nancy Pelosi, which is absolutely what happened. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I'm not letting her get away with it. You shouldn't either.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Follow us on Facebook, Chad Benson Show. Follow Chad on Twitter. Pretty much everywhere that social media is, you can talk to us there. And I'm encouraging you every day to go say stuff that makes no sense so that Chad is confused what the heck we were talking about on the show every single day. I saw this story about the new book coming out from Sarah Saunders, a book all about, her story, her life, her experience while she worked for the Trump administration. And there is some surreal stuff in this thing. There's an early copy that's been received by a few different press places, so some of it's leaked now. The most surreal, maybe, of the comments in it, though, is the assertion that President Trump once tried to encourage Sarah to, and I quote, take one for the team because Kim Jong-Un had winked at her, and maybe that would help with relations between North Korea and our country if Sarah were to fly to North Korea and be interested after what the president perceived was hitting on via the winking. That's a surreal set of statements that I just went through right there, and it's in the book. Every single person I said that's going to interact with the Trump administration will eventually write their own book and or host their own TV show, radio show, podcast, something. This is another one of those. If this is true, it's horrible. But if it's true, it's kind of crazy. I mean, like, why would anyone actually say or do that and assume that, like, that's the right? I'm so at a loss for words, as demonstrated right now, by how exactly to interpret and react to the idea of this, and let alone any kind of potential proof that it happened. Although take one for the team does sort of kind of sound like the thing that some people might say. It's very, I don't know what a better way to describe it is, but the guy talk kind of thing that President Trump was accused of having said before, back all the way when you got the Billy Bush stuff going on. So it's just surreal, though. Speaking for myself as a book that will be released next week, it's yet another. We just got to count this. You know what we should do? Let's have this be the social media post of the day. Go ahead and say over under on how many more tell-all books come out throughout the length of the rest of the presidential run that is Donald Trump's presidency. And obviously that'll show whether or not you think he's getting reelected. How many more tell-alls we get? You got over under on 20, over under on 40. How many more people that somehow interacted with some member of the family, some member of the staff, somebody is going to write a book? You got a Melania Trump former best friend writing one. You have a second book coming out by a couple people that have already written one. So there's going to be a bunch. I just want to know how many true stories and how many maybe movies are created and all different varieties, Lifetime, everything, over under on 20 at least in the rest of the run. I think that it's over that amount. Maybe I should do a more aggressive, maybe 40 is the right number of tell-alls that are still yet to come, that have not even been announced yet, for someone that's somehow connected to and involved in the Trump administration. Even if he doesn't get reelected, I guess there's probably a chance that we still get 40-plus versions of this. It's just it's surreal. And if this did happen, I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry to Sarah that this happened. It's utterly inappropriate, but just definitely the kind of headline that's going to sell a book. So there's always that to consider, whether or not that things like this are exactly portrayed the way that they occurred, or maybe somewhat exaggerated for the sake of a tell-all book that's going to sell like hotcakes, when you have a description of how President Trump once tried to encourage a member of his staff to be interested in the advances of a dictator in another country. That's an actual sentence I'm saying in 2020, and I just can't I can't understand it whatsoever, but it's the world in which we all live. Also, Old Navy is getting involved in politics. I guess kind of. They're going to allow employees to work at election polls in November. That's nice of them. Old Navy has announced it will pay its employees to work at the polls to help have things go smoothly, be open, whatever. Old Navy, I guess, doing a pretty good job at keeping people safe, so why not? They said that they will offer 50,000 employees paid time off to serve as poll workers on Election Day. The brand, whose parent company is Gap, is also offering employees up to 3 paid hours to vote because it's important so that we can all vote and do what we have to do. Big news was their tweet. We're partnering with Power the Polls to empower our 50,000 employees with paid time off to serve. This is cool. I don't actually have a problem with this. This, to me, is pretty good. We want people to be able to be in those election sites so that people can vote in person if they want to, do it safely, and feel confident that their vote's going to be counted correctly because, well, you did it the old-fashioned way. You did it in person, and then maybe get a good pair of jeans afterward. I don't know if there's going to be some kind of sale. A coupon. That seems like the right moment for that. As you're walking out at the end, be like, and by the way, it's buy one, get one free right now on T-shirts. This is the Chad Benson Show. I'm Craig Collins, filling in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Chad on vacation until next week. United Airlines, I guess all airlines have to let their employees know if they're going to be furloughed and or laid off in the near future. They got to give them a certain amount of warning. So United Airlines had an internal memo that leaked telling 16,370 employees that they're likely to be furloughed in October. This is after, mind you, and you probably don't remember this, maybe you do, that they all took money as part of the CARES Act, and that CARES Act also stipulated that you can't lay anybody off, you can't do anything negative to the employees that you're going to use this money to pay until September 30th. So the memo says October, probably October 1st, 16,370 employees, United Airlines, not the only airline to have this happening. American Airlines likely to furlough at least 19,000 employees. Layoffs may also be very much in the coming days, a part of every single airline strategy to stay afloat. This article I'm reading also points out that revenues dropped substantially, obviously, in times like March, April, May, 95% of all revenue gone. The employees are about 2,800 pilots, 6,920 flight attendants, 2,000 plus technicians. Some other different types of employees, catering teams are also hit by this. We're going to see a lot of this. The president is debating some executive action to prevent it. And I just want to say again, as I've tried to say several times, both on TV shows, on radio shows, and just generally to any of my friends that'll listen, that if the president keeps taking executive actions that help the American worker, how can the narrative be that he doesn't care? How it can easily be that everybody else doesn't care. You can easily say that Nancy Pelosi is doing her own haircut thing and then not passing a stimulus bill, and that doesn't seem like she cares a whole lot about people that are struggling. But if the president chooses to prevent airlines from canning a whole bunch of people or furloughing a bunch of people, especially at a time when they're not going to get an added unemployment benefit the way that people did months ago when they were all furloughed, the president's the only guy on team worker right now, and he is debating how exactly that would look, what they can do to possibly prevent it. Obviously, there's also a huge hope that airlines start to gain a lot more funds via a bounce back in the amount of demand, but it's just not happening anywhere near as quickly as probably they would like. But it's not necessarily surprising that airlines are struggling right now. They're obviously hit hard by just all the different concerns we have. I think the biggest hope for some, and I get it if you're not going to be a person to take it, but a vaccine might be available as early as November. That's according to the CDC, by the way. All the people that say that, Trump is is too aggressive in all these things that he throws out there to the public and all the ways in which he says, let's aim to get this done quickly. He had months ago said that he thought that we'd have a vaccine by this year, and everybody else, Dr. Fauci, whoever, said, no, pump the brakes, Donnie. And they're all going to be wrong. He seems like he's going to be right, as the CDC has told states to prepare to start utilizing a vaccine as early as November. Now, granted, it's probably not the kind of thing that everyone can get that quickly. It'll go to those most in need of getting it first, people like healthcare professionals and or high-risk individuals in long-term care facilities. But it inevitably would be on the market and hopefully help us completely rebound for anyone and everyone willing to take a coronavirus vaccine, as long as it's proved to be effective, which Dr. Fauci himself has even said he is confident will happen. And just, where is the apology ever? Honestly, like, where's ever the I'm sorry, we got that wrong, you got it right? And that's not going to happen. That's not the way in which we operate in the society that is Trump derangement syndrome. You crap on the guy every time you think he's stepped out of line. And any moment that the president winds up being right about a thing, we kind of forget he talked about it so that we can just move on saying that the next thing he says is horrible and terrible. Also in other news, just kind of shifting gears a bit, I saw a very interesting survey that said, and this is the USA Today is the one reporting this, that 28% of a presidential candidate's supporters would believe that the election were not valid, that it was somehow unfairly won if their presidential candidate was not elected. And the other guy only has a 19% amount of supporters who would doubt the legitimacy of an election. And it's not the names you think. It's a reverse. 28% of Biden's supporters in a recent poll said that they would think that somehow Trump and or Russia, I don't know who, cheated to win the election, while only 19% of Trump supporters say they felt the same way, even with the mail-in balloting and everything else being talking points that the president brings up often. How interesting is that? That it actually is more likely for a supporter of former vice president and presidential candidate Joe Biden to think that the election is rigged than for Donald Trump supporters to think the election is rigged. I thought that was tremendously interesting information because, of course, people will tell you that they're weary of Trump losing because they don't know how his supporters will take that. Apparently, Joe Biden supporters would also be a little less than likely to think it happened on the up and up. Also, I saw that the Portland mayor, Ted Wheeler, is intent on moving. He decided to sell his $840,000 condo to avoid rioting in his area, to avoid his building being targeted any further. It's something that he's seen a lot of. He sent a letter to his neighbors saying that it was best for his safety and all of theirs that he move. How convenient for people that turn a blind eye to the violence that happens at times because they feel that, that's taking away from what are the important issues, or I'm not being woke enough to lead a place like Portland, so I'm just going to ignore the violence, the bad things that are happening. And then the minute that it's hitting on my front door a little bit too much, this is the same for Lori Lightfoot out of Chicago, who actually has like police officers and protection staff on her block to keep her safe. How convenient is it for you to say one thing and then just go ahead and do another? This seems to be a reoccurring narrative today that the Portland mayor, for his safety and for all of yours, is going to leave an area that might continue to have protesting in it, might continue to see some damage and some violence in it, but he's not going to be there anymore because he's going to get out. He's going to go somewhere else so that he can stay safe, so everybody can stay safe. Wouldn't it be nice if we were all treated that way? Wouldn't it be nice if everyone were capable of finding a way to be protected, to be safe at a time like this? All right, let's shift gears again to something a tad more fun, because I saw something that made me laugh. And I got to let you know, if you don't know this already, I'm a millennial. And every once in a while, my millennial brethren, they let me down quite a bit. And this would be a definite example of that. A recent survey asked millennials what their top camping traditions are. Camping, you go out, you go into the wilderness. You're supposed to live on the earth, I guess, for a little bit, live in the wild. To some extent, I'm not expecting every single person to go out into the wild to immediately try to, fish and hunt for food. I get it. You're going to do some version of that. But here are the top traditions of a millennial that's going what I would call glamping in 2020. And I typically do these in reverse order. I go 10 to 1, but I want to do 1 to 10 because it makes us look better. The number one is you check the weather on your phone. That's not so bad. The technology is available to check the weather on your phone. Yeah, okay. Some purists would say you shouldn't use your phone while you're camping, but come on. You Google some stuff to do in the area, not necessarily maybe continue to camp in the wilderness, but go hit up a restaurant. That doesn't sound great, but, maybe some of that is actually just the sights you want to see. So that's still fine. Read the news. That's something you do while on camping in the wilderness. All right, millennials. Posting photos on social media. All right, now we're losing us. Now it's starting to get a little bit different. But, if you don't put it on Facebook or Twitter or something, it didn't happen. So I guess they're just trying to be historically accurate about how their lives are going. You use GPS to go on your hike. Can't you just try one? Can't you figure out what direction you went in or just a compass? Yeah, how far are we hiking, people? Stream music on your phone or iPad while you're in the wilderness. All right, fine. Listen to the radio on your phone. That's fine. I'm going to be biased there. That one's the only one I accept of the technology you're adding. Play video games while in the wild. And I guess you do that either via bringing everything with or I guess also on your phone. That's a bad look. If you go camping with somebody and the person's just playing video games on their cell phone the whole time, just don't do that. Just, accept the fact that this person doesn't want to camp at all. The number 9 answer on the list was streaming movies that you watch together while in a tent outdoors. Again, I ask you why. And here's the number 10 answer, which is the most disappointing to me. So it's my number 1 for where I hang my head in shame for being a millennial. While camping, the number 10 answer given to the amount of people who have a camping tradition, you order food and have it delivered to the campsite. If you have a pizza brought to your campsite, what are you doing? In all honesty, seriously, and I know that I'm railing harder against camping now than anything else, but we need to do better, millennials. This is where I feel like I can get on my soapbox. It also said that 40% of kids today have never had a marshmallow that's been cooked by a fire. They've never done it. We can do better. Make camping great again. That is my narrative for this year, and I'm going to keep saying it as much as I can and make it more actually about camping and not ordering a pizza, playing video games, and spraying a bunch of mosquito repellent until you decide to just give up and go home. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Chad is on vacation. He'll be back next week. Hey, there's going to be some debates. At least there's moderators for debates. There's debate dates all scheduled and stuff now. The first one, the presidential debate, will take place on September 29th. That's a Tuesday. Chris Wallace will be doing the interview. We'll doing the moderating of that conversation. And I look forward to that very much. It's actually weird that it's going to be so late in September, not because that's abnormal for most elections, but because some people may have already voted. A lot of people, more than normal, may have already voted by then because states will start sending out those mail-in ballots. And almost everywhere has been telling you to send it in as quick as possible because otherwise it might be in jeopardy of not being counted. So the first debate, though, will take place on the 29th. The second presidential debate will take place on the 15th of October. And then the last debate would take place on the 22nd, a Thursday in October as well. The last two are on C-SPAN and NBC News. It'll be very interesting to see, or actually the correspondents are from those, the moderators. So it'll be very interesting to see how those go. There's a vice presidential debate, too, on October 7th, which I don't know if people will watch. I don't know that people always care that much about those, but hey, they're there if you want it. And I am very interested to see if they actually get drug tested, which is something the president wants to have happen. I don't know. I feel like that's a valuable part of this whole thing. And I don't know if I'm being as silly as possible or as obvious as possible in that sentence, because it does seem undervalued this year by so many different people. Undervalued by Nancy Pelosi by telling you not to go, schedule a haircut instead. Undervalued by people maybe that are just trying to keep us safe and the Joe Bidens of the world. And yet I think that there's no better platform to decide whether or not you support one person or the other if you're undecided even a little bit than to watch them converse together. And yet, for whatever reason, this feels like I don't even know if it's going to happen. I got to be honest. I'm still not sure. I know it's all been announced and stuff. I feel like we're weeks away from finding out that it's not going to happen. All right, let's shift gears to other news. Obviously, the civil unrest, the tension that exists, race relations in our country are difficult. I actually saw a study about how they're at an all-time low in the last however many years since the last time that our country went through a lot of this. So it's not good. Again, to be just super obvious. So much so that I guess the only black owner of a racehorse that's supposed to race in the Kentucky Derby is being asked to not run. For the first time in 13 years, African-American ownership is coming back to the Kentucky Derby, maybe. The people that are hoping that they choose not to run their horse are saying the same thing that they said about the NBA, about anybody else. Like, don't do it. Just don't be a part of society until things get better for us. Even though the owners, when they were talked to about this very thing, were obviously very excited about it in a different time, maybe. It's very significant for all of us, really, one of them said, to finally achieve the goal of being a participant. This is Greg Harbutt said, it means the world to me, and I'm sure it does to Ray as well, the co-owner of the horse that's being pushed now by some to not run in the Derby at all. I don't know. I'm very confused as to why we would dictate to people what they do and don't do to support a thing, right? Like, why do we dictate to people what they do or choose not to do in their way in which I'm sure that there's support for the movement itself. I'm sure there's support for the sentiments themselves. But yet, if a person feels they've made an accomplishment, a career accomplishment that's valuable to them in the community they come from, and they want to race their horse, why not? I don't have a better answer for that. And the only thing that my mind just sort of jumped to when I said, why do we try to dictate to people how they raise awareness to issues, is, of course, all the criticism that Colin Kaepernick got while he was kneeling during the national anthem. And at times, I think we criticize people for their actions, not necessarily because their actions are tied to what they do or don't support, right? I mean, Colin Kaepernick was trying to protest something that at the time, maybe people didn't appreciate as much as they do now, but the way in which he was choosing to protest it sent a different message that was confusing to a lot of Americans who cared about respect for the flag, and even still do, even though that conversation is certainly tampered down just a bit. It is still out there that people, have that concern. So when I say, why do we try to tell someone how to protest if they don't want to be a part of the movement the way you want them to be? I think that's on you. That's not on them. But I think if you react to someone's actions in general, I just heard the criticism for me as I was saying that. Well, Craig, you've said this before. I will criticize someone for their actions, I guess irrelevant sometimes to the meaning of those actions, depending on what I think they could accidentally be saying. All right, I'm just going to jump gears. I can't get myself out of this tongue twister of a situation, but you know what I mean. I know what I mean. That's all that matters. Reese's has created a cake you're supposed to eat in the morning. This is Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. This is candy. This is probably not a good idea. They're going to be rolling this out in December. It's a new product they've announced now. It's the Reese's Snack Cake. I don't know what's happening. There's supposed to be a breakfast cake that you eat between lunch and breakfast. I guess it's not even necessarily for breakfast. It is chocolate, though, with Reese's peanut butter cream on top. It is covered in chocolate. The package says the serving is about 380 calories. Would you feel great, like, giving this to a kid? And I remember back in the day, the things I ate. Lunchables are a terrible product. You just have a bunch of things all in plastic wrap that seem bad today, but it's just fine when you were a kid, so maybe you wouldn't care. But a snack cake from Reese's Peanut Butter Cups that is supposed to be an in-between breakfast and lunch thing, and it's just chocolate with peanut butter cream on it. This does seem a tad irresponsible, but that's just me. Again, not to judge today. USA Today has reported on the new release, the new product that Reese's is very excited. We might all try, because why not? We've all gone through quarantine. We've all decided that gyms are not as valuable as they've ever been. Why not just eat Reese's first thing in the morning? Or the Cookie Crisp has always been one of my favorites, and I do mean that earnestly. I actually still eat Cookie Crisp because I'm a small child. All right, this is Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in, getting us back from off the rails after this.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Happy to be with you. Chad back next week. Indianapolis had to fire somebody from one of their targets because I guess the person didn't necessarily try to actually do this, but just joked about doing it. A former Target employee recently uploaded a video to the social media site TikTok in which they showed the employee making a Blue Lives Matter drink they alleged containing bleach. The worker who reportedly made the drink inside a Starbucks location in a Target has been fired for egregiously violating the company's food safety procedures. Target later confirmed that the drink did not contain bleach, nor was it served to anyone. While the original TikTok video has since been taken down, there were copycats made so that you can still find it, I guess, places on the internet. It allegedly showed the worker pouring what was referred to as bleach into a cup before adding ice because, you know, cops love ice, I guess, this person says in the video, as well as a red liquid described as the blood of the innocent. And finally, the blue ingredient Starbucks has, I guess, is just some sort of flavoring. The contents were then blended and poured into a cup, which the words Blue Lives Matter was written on. Well, the video's creator made the drink inside the Starbucks location. The employee technically worked for Target, the retail outlet confirmed. So that's why Target is part of this news story and why Target canned this person. The video is appalling and unacceptable, a spokesperson for Target said. We don't tolerate this behavior. We want all guests to be treated with respect, and we have terminated the team member who was responsible. We also have rigorous food safety procedures in place, which this team member egregiously violated with this behavior. Look, I have to be honest when I think about every aspect of this. There's what I assume teenager or 20-something on social media on a place like TikTok that thought, one, that it would be funny to put something like this up on the social media platform, and two, that it would be well received, that people that either they're friends with or just people on the platform would like it. And this is a huge part of the potential for a continued problem as far as the conversations that need to happen in order to get anyone to a place on either side of any conversation, but certainly on the sides of this conversation about how police and the people they interact with need to find more valuable ways to have those interactions happen and not have these constant stories that we're seeing in the news with people, unarmed people, losing their lives. This is not the right approach. I don't know if I'm not helping at all, if I'm saying something that you already know, if I'm preaching to the choir, essentially. But the same thing is true about any of the rioting and any of the looting. You can't stand and say that we need to do a better job of interaction between police officers and communities and then start breaking the law. That's not usually a good way, a second set of circumstances to put them in and put yourself in order to try to have the conversation you want to have. And this is also a part of that. We have people who have tried to hurt police officers through this and now just continued viral videos. And it's not like the platform TikTok has said too much about it, other than, I think, removing it. So it's interesting to me, too, that we're going to keep having this back and forth debate. And I just don't get it. I truly don't get why some people will defend to you the value in these types of things as opposed to just the value in a peaceful version of a conversation. I don't understand. And whenever anyone tells me that it's because peaceful conversations don't work, I dive into a bunch of research, just years and years of research on how that's utterly inaccurate, how inclusive protesting, that's not exclusive because you're not doing it in a way that will make people unable to participate with you because they don't want to do things like, say, commit crimes. When you do inclusive protesting, inclusive civil movements, tremendously more successful, the data says, not me, the data, than those that are exclusive, those that are aggressive in nature. And this is another form of that. And just a joke somebody put up on social media, at least a joke to them. Dating apps are promoting people to start voting in the election. This is awesome. OkCupid, Tinder, Bumble, all the ones that people are on trying to score dates in 2020 apparently also have a new little badge and a little commercial that pops up, said Voter 2020. It's a profile that shows how to register in the upcoming election and then encourages you to do so. So you're swiping right or left on potential matches, and then all of a sudden Joe Biden pops up, I assume, or maybe Donald Trump, or I don't know who would, and then it's telling you, pick this person in 2020, and they don't mean for a date, they mean in the election. And that feels a little heavy-handed to me. It's good. We should all vote. That's fine. Bumble, one of the companies partnering with I Am a Voter, the public awareness campaign to get people out there and registered, said that they're happy about this whole process, I guess. A lot of people are. OkCupid, which matched with Match Group, is working with When We All Vote, apparently, as another one of those initiatives. This one's founded, by the way, by Michelle Obama, Tom Hanks, and other celebrities that are all just trying to get people to register to vote. I don't know if the moment that I'm trying to look for someone to go on a date with is also the moment that I'm really thinking a lot about politics. I don't know. And maybe you have to, if you've got to make sure that the conversations you have on this blind date go the way you want them to go. But it's just, the world we live in is strange. Speaking of which, actually, there's a whiskey hotel that's to open in Los Angeles, and they're going to have a unique feature that maybe they could have waited on. I've been doing a segment every so often where I say, like, things that could have waited till 2021, and this might be one of those. I like whiskey. I'm not trying to break bad against that. It's a whiskey-themed hotel, appropriately named the Whiskey Hotel, and we're in the works in Los Angeles. The 7-story building, which is currently in the early stages of construction, will include 134 rooms and is expected to be opened in the future. So maybe it won't actually open this year, which is a good thing, but it's going to feature a whiskey fountain. A whiskey fountain will be in the hotel. I can't imagine the amount of mistakes that will be made, maybe while imbibing, after imbibing, before imbibing, in the whiskeys that are available in this hotel, in and around the whiskey fountain. There are mini bars in people's rooms. There's a rooftop bar and restaurant as well. The Whiskey Hotel aims to carve out a niche growing whiskey tourism industry. It's trying to attract those that are into that, and plans to do so by providing a unique experience for those who are connoisseurs of the product and those who are just amateurs. You are an amateur if you do way too much drinking in the whiskey fountain. That's just me. It will be the first of Los Angeles, but not the only, to be a tourist destination with whiskey as the tourist attraction in mind. That is something else, man. I am very interested, very intrigued by that. And as I said, the actual creation of a whiskey fountain can wait till 2021 or later, but it looks like it might have to anyway because they might be a little bit behind. So I like that. I saw this in the news, and at a point I thought it was a little bit funny just because of the contradiction of all of it. But it's not necessarily entirely humorous, because things like drunk driving are utterly dangerous and should not happen. They are terrible. So that needs to be said. And in this audio I'm going to play for you, you'll hear a lot of people concerned about how something like this could happen, because the next step up, outside of it being just a sign somebody hits, is somebody hurting someone else. But a guy in Florida was driving drunk on Sunday when he crashed into a sign on the road, didn't notice it, just kept driving and got home. The sign was drive sober or get pulled over. The guy is drunk behind the wheel, hits a drive sober or get pulled over sign, and just keeps going on. And people are obviously very concerned. That is surreal, the fact that that's what the guy hits. But hopefully he's punished accordingly for that and stops doing any of this, because he's now going to be a laughingstock to people. But here's the audio of this discussion on the local news.
He even hit anything. He was oblivious to the fact that he ran over that sign. That could have easily been a person, a tree, and the tree, it could be fatal.
It's very scary. We've got kids all over this neighborhood, and it's terrifying to think that there's drivers out there like that.
Now it's a sign, but next it's going to be a people.
Yeah, I mean, they're all right about that. It's a sign, and that's, I guess good that it's a sign. I can't believe it's a drive sober or get pulled over sign, and the guy just kept going. You think it got stuck in his car and he had it with him when he got home? And he just looked at it, he's like, oh, look at that. I guess I hit a sign today. It's crazy, man. And the fact that it happens in Florida, I guess, isn't all that surprising, because you got stories like that coming out of Florida all the time. But seriously, there is a serious component to that, which made me, I guess, want to laugh at some of the ridiculousness of the luck and all that, but also, I guess, be very happy that they are that lucky and it's not something worse. But then I guess turn it into a PSA like they did on the news and say that this is a serious thing, and you gotta do everything you can to never, ever put yourself in a situation like that, because you could absolutely hurt somebody. All right, I got to take a break. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege. Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo. Ain't nobody got time for this.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in with you for today. the day. There we go. That's not a good start to a segment. I wanted to talk about college students just a bit. One, because obviously there's a lot of colleges making the news for the amount of coronavirus cases, the amount of COVID-19 positive cases they're getting on campus, the amount of tests that are going the wrong way as these colleges have students coming back to all kinds of communities that they might not actually live in and some that might not be all those big of areas. One of the schools in this story, this comes from the New York Post, is in Michigan, and they are having their tiny liberal arts students all get an app that tracks their whereabouts at all times. There's only about 1,500 students that go to this school, but the need for the university to have a spyware-esque app on the phones is 100% to protect the kids and to protect everyone in the community, according to the school. It's not the only one that's contemplated or may continue to do this. App tracking devices may be used, or app tracking services may be used by a lot of location tracking, I should say, a lot of the colleges in order to safely reopen. I know that people are going to have a lot of opinions as far as this goes, like as far as the amount of privacy that might be invaded here. I would say one thing, and I guess this is one, because I'm not in school and no one's asking me to do it, and two, just because the kids that are of college age right now grew up with computers, grew up with all kinds of stuff. I think they're probably the individuals who have the most things about them already on the internet. So any additional hacking that might happen, any additional stealing of information, they're probably pretty much things that people already know about kids. But I don't know if this is bad. I don't know that I completely hate the idea of being able to tell when someone went and ventured out, or maybe when a bunch of kids got together and had a party they shouldn't be having, because you don't really want cases to explode in areas it's not in, because people, as I said, that aren't a part of those communities are coming in for education. And I know that the schools want to be open. I know that obviously all schools would like to be able to educate their students. I think it's more important at times to have young kids educated in person than it is to have essentially adults, 18 to 22-year-olds and whatnot. I think they can probably more safely and more effectively learn from home than kids can. But this is just very interesting to me that we're going to start tracking them, because essentially I think this is the slippery slope conversation some people have too about if it's not necessarily a university to its students, but it's a government to everyone that lives in an area. That's when we start to get, when things start to get just a little bit tricky. But I'd love to know if you want to tell us on social media if you think this is a good idea or not to allow students back into classrooms, and in order to do that safely, to just track their whereabouts at all times while they are in the communities or while they're at the universities taking classes, and then hopefully maybe delete those things off their computer, off their phone after the fact. I also saw a story out of California about a couple of fishermen who were just, having a typical day, and then I guess they reeled in what was essentially a live pipe bomb. I have audio of the conversation. The guy is very relaxed while having it, and I guess they were one of two sets of fishers that morning that caught a bomb and then wound up calling police, who found out that the bombs indeed were still active and they disposed of them in a safe way. But here's what it sounds like if you're a guy fishing all morning and you're someone who goes to the same place to fish for 15 years, and one day, well, just, trying to catch something cool, you reel in a bomb.
Boat, and we thought it was like an anchor, and so we put the net away and then got the line up, and we got it right to the boat and realized, my father-in-law was like, it's a bomb, and he's like, get to the front of the boat. And I think that they're probably trying to blow up salmon and knocking them out and having them float up and then taking them. That's what I think.
That's not fishing, by the way. That feels like millennial camping if you just chuck a bomb in the water and get to catch all the fish that are killed by an explosion. That really doesn't, that feels like cheating. You're already fishing. I mean, you're already winning as far as this goes. I don't think you should take that step further, but I don't know very much about fishing, so this might be common. I just can't believe how chill this guy is while retelling this story to the news. It's like, we found it, and my uncle's like, oh, that's a bomb. Everybody moved to the front of the boat, as if a boat is big enough to be safe in that situation. What world do we live in 2020 where you could just reel in, and then another set of fishermen do it as well, a pipe bomb that's still essentially live, just floating and sitting in the water. I don't know if I recognize the world right now, and I hope to recognize it again soon, because this is getting very, very intense, the world in which we currently live and all the different things that are happening every single day. But a pipe bomb. Here, I want to hear that one more time. I just want to hear how chill this guy is.
My father-in-law had the net ready, and we got it up towards the boat, and we thought it was like an anchor, and so we put the net away and then got the line up, and we got it right to the boat and realized, my father-in-law was like, it's a bomb, and he's like, get to the...
I hope that's how it was. Like, just, it's a bomb. you should probably move to the front of the boat so I can call the cops and get rid of this thing. Real quick, this is something that I very much enjoy. It's one of my favorite pieces of audio that I found all day today. So I'm probably going to want to play this several more times. But there's a guy who appeared in front of a city council in Nebraska with a very important issue to him. He wanted to make sure that public awareness was an all-time high because we're doing it an utter disservice in the restaurant world to our children, where society is being harmed, and we need it to stop. Here is what he said to the city council and the issue he's trying to raise more public awareness for.
Lincoln has the opportunity to be a social leader in this country. We have been casually ignoring a problem that has gotten so out of control that our children are throwing around names and words without even understanding their true meaning and treating things as though they're normal. I go into nice family restaurants and I see people throwing this name around and pretending as though everything is just fine. I'm talking about boneless chicken wings. I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to... Excuse me, come on.
It's my favorite part. I know that it's a long road to get to the hilariousness that is the chicken wings comment, but then the fact that somebody cannot handle it at this event is just my favorite. Listen to that again.
I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Dude, yeah. Come on.
I propose that we rename boneless wings in the city of Lincoln. We can call them buffalo-style chicken tenders.
Boom. One suggestion. That one's pretty good. Let's try another.
We can call them wet tenders.
Wet tenders. Think about that for a second. Try us again.
We can call them saucy nugs.
Saucy nugs doesn't sound so bad. It's my band name.
Or trash.
Trash.
We can take these steps.
Can you imagine if this guy got what he wanted and you rolled into a restaurant and you're like, oh, let's see what's on the menu. Oh, you have trash. That's wonderful. Can I get trash with a side of barbecue sauce? Is that available today?
And show the country that where we stand and that we understand that we've been living a lie for far too long. And we know it because we feel it in our bones.
Thank you.
I love that there's also one guy applauding at the end. They're like, thank you. That is an issue that you and I care about deeply. Do you think he's on the tail end of like a bar evening, the guy who gave this speech? He's been debating it all night at a bar. He's at a certain level of intoxication, and he wrote this version of Serious Speech. By the way, actually, the New York Times was able to find this guy and catch up with him about his issue, and he swears it's real. He swears this isn't a prank. He wasn't making a joke. He said that he doubted he would actually get any change to happen for his issue because he wasn't sure that people would care. But now, in light of the fact that it's gone viral, his statement that he made the other day, and that places like the New York Times are giving him a phone call, he has hope that we might get into a better world where you might have saucy nugs on a menu sometime in the future, or just trash. You know, man, I would really love to just have that happen just one day.
We can call them wet tenders.
Wet tenders.
We can call them saucy nugs or trash.
I hope that's real. That is the best. If he winds up being a prank at some other point, I'm very disappointed. Craig Collins, Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in while Chad is on a much-deserved vacation. Attorney General William Barr is in the news. He gave an interview to Wolf Blitzer. They talked about quite a few different things. A couple of the things that Attorney General Barr said are of a lot of interest to some. Certainly, I guess it's going to be breaking news for the entire day today on some of those cable channels. But let's hear part of that conversation, a couple of the things that were said. One, when Wolf Blitzer was trying to, I think, get a very specific answer from the Attorney General as far as the president goes and how he behaves, the things he says publicly, and the pressures he might be putting on the AG. This is the lesser of the two conversations that is had because, one, I don't think that Barr gave the answer that Wolf was hoping for, so you're not going to hear about it as much. But here is part of that question as to why it may feel or not feel like pressure for the president to say things like Barr could be the best attorney general ever if he does some very specific investigating.
Is it appropriate for the president of the United States to be putting pressure on you in the way he clearly did?
I don't feel any pressure from that.
Oopsie. That's 0 for 1 as far as the questions go. He clearly put pressure on you. Does that feel bad? I don't feel the pressure. I said he clearly did, sir. You've got to answer the way that I set up the question. Here, let's see Wolf keep trying.
You don't think he's trying to pressure you into going forward with indictments and criminal charges and stuff like that?
No, that's, when we talk in private, he doesn't talk like that, so.
And now the stammering is going to get worse.
He doesn't talk like that to you privately, but publicly he is. But is it appropriate for a president of the United States to be speaking like that publicly about the sitting attorney?
What do you think is inappropriate about what he's saying?
Well, let me play another.
He's about to play more audio that's essentially the same thing. But the whole first 30 seconds of that interaction, Wolf Blitzer has failed at the goal of just getting Barr to say one sentence that CNN wanted to run all day and night as like the update of the day. William Barr unhappy with things President Trump said. William Barr didn't care, and he wasn't playing that game. So they play more audio of Trump complaining or stating that, you would be a great attorney general if you investigate Obama and others, and you will be just an average guy if you don't. And then continuing to try to trap Barr into the sentence they wanted and they didn't get. Here's that continued conversation.
Bill Barr can go down as the greatest attorney general in the history of our country, or he can go down as just an average guy. It depends on what's going to happen.
I see you smiling, but...
I sort of responded to that by saying that, if I was really concerned about being politically correct, I wouldn't have joined the administration. And also, I held a press conference and said that neither President Obama or Vice President Biden were under investigation.
Now, look, I'm not going to tell Wolf how to do his job, but if it were me at this point and I were trying to get someone to say a specific thing they're still not saying, I would have bailed. Now is where you pop the parachute, where you jump over to something else, shift gears. That didn't happen. Wolf tries to go one more time at this issue, and then eventually Barr gets to throw a side swipe away that CNN did not want him to throw it. But that eventually ended the conversation.
But is it appropriate, though?
That's how I respond.
But is it appropriate, and you've worked for another president, President George H.W. Bush, is it appropriate for a president to be urging you to launch criminal investigations against his political opponents?
Well, I didn't take that as launching a criminal investigation. We're reviewing the Russiagate thing, and I think he's interested in the results of it. But I didn't think it was appropriate for either Vice President Biden or Kamala Harris to call for the charging of a police officer before that matter is reviewed and all the facts are in.
And then that's the end of that conversation, Wolf, because you don't want to keep changing. You don't want to keep down that new conversation path that the AG has demonstrated for you. Let's get to the more, controversial audio, if that's what you want to call it, or the more talked about audio. Wolf Blitzer also wanted to ask the Attorney General about the perception of certain cases, certain things that have happened, certainly the way in which police are interacting with black men and the stories we're hearing on a weekly, monthly, whatever it is basis that all sound horrible, terrible, and they sound like there's a need for society to change. That is definitely the narrative that we're hearing on a grand scale in the way in which we're interpreting these individual stories. And yet the Attorney General wanted to point out that some of the stories may be different than others, something that Wolf Blitzer I don't think was also expecting. But this is what is getting the most play today from that conversation.
How do you think African-American parents around the country explain to their kids what exactly happened to Jacob Blake, for example, and why that police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the Blake case.
Why not?
Because I think it's different than the Floyd case.
What's different?
Well, Floyd was already subdued, incapacitated, in handcuffs, and was not armed. In the Jacob case, he was in the midst of committing a felony, and he was armed. So that's a big difference. From the standpoint,
his family says he wasn't armed.
Well, I think
there may have been a knife in the car, but he wasn't armed when he was shot.
Well,
that's what his family and his lawyers say.
I've stated what I believe is to be the difference, and that's why I don't want to talk about them as if they're interchangeable. Okay.
That is the biggest statement of the day, I guess, as far as a lot of places are concerned, as far as a lot of people may be concerned, and the way in which the Attorney General is pointing out, and I think to an extent accurately, not necessarily a description of either case, which I think we still need a lot more information to wind up coming to the forefront to understand things as well as possible for any news story you see that happens, just a few days ago. I think it is relevant to wait more time to hear. And it's not that it necessarily changes the story in a way that makes you think, all right, this isn't a complete example of something that needs change. It might be the opposite. More details might make it even more apparent that the way in which things were handled was wrong. But just waiting for those details seems valuable. But the Attorney General and Wolf Blitzer continue down this path, this conversation, after getting those points out as far as the way in which those two cases are different, and then kind of talking about the issues that exist from race relations standpoints on more of a large scale.
Now, I did say that I do think that there appears to be a phenomenon in the country where African Americans feel that they're treated, when they're stopped by police frequently, as suspects before they're treated as citizens. I don't think that necessarily reflects some deep-seated racism in police departments or in most police officers. I think the same kind of behavior is done by African American police officers. I think there are stereotypes. I think people operate very frequently according to stereotypes, and I think it takes extra precaution on the part of law enforcement to make sure we don't reduce people to stereotypes. We treat them as individuals.
That is the second half of the conversation. You're not going to hear the last couple sentences a lot of places because the headline to the news world is going to be the first bit of conversation, the thing specific to certain cases, and then also just maybe being more protective of law enforcement than some would like for an attorney general to be. But I think the second half of that comment is probably the most valuable thing that the attorney general said during the entirety of that interview. It's that it may not be a reflection of deep-seated racism, the way in which some interact, and I can't speak for anyone individually or all cases for sure, but maybe in a much larger sense to a larger degree of the things that don't end in a way that it becomes national news, but do end in a way that may be unfair, that may be treatment that is not exactly, again, treating someone like they're innocent first, to call it a bias, to call it a way in which people respond to things as stereotypes and how that needs to change. There is a tremendous amount of value in that thought process moving forward as an idea within a conversation on how we create change. This feels to me like someone that actually may be looking for solutions to a problem as opposed to just discussing a problem that needs changing. That sounds to me like someone who's much more interested in getting us to a place where these sort of things don't happen anymore. But that's my opinion of that part of the conversation. Again, you weigh in on whatever part you want to, and obviously CNN will run whatever headline and whatever little clip they feel is most valuable within that conversation. Just shifting gears kind of entirely here, I see that the amount of time Americans spend in front of their screens is at an all-time high. Obviously, this got worse during the pandemic and during the time in which we were stuck in quarantine. But a survey of 2,000 Americans found that 53% of respondents are feeling burnt out with screen use over time for the last few months, even though it's at an all-time high because, there's not maybe as much to do. The average American surveyed was getting about 4 hours, four different screens that they would view every single day. That would be computer screen, TV screen, whatever, and 6 hours of time spent in front of those screens on a daily basis. That number has jumped to 6 hours. Their eyes are also paying the price. And a survey conducted by another group found that people are less and less capable of maybe passing the standard eye test, maybe having a little bit of an issue because of this extended screen time. 6 in 10 respondents even said that they often feel screen-related aches and pains in their body because of the amount of time that we sit around each day. What do we do? How do we make this better? Let's go for solutions. Let's ask the Attorney General for a solution to this. I think get out of the house. I think walk around. I think do some kind of things to be totally absent of screens. And I love continuing to push for this idea that we all take like a one-day break, maybe once a year, maybe once we have coronavirus completely over, and we just all go to the park and hang out. You're not allowed to bring any kind of technology. You go to your local park. We all go at the same time. Maybe there's Frisbees laying around, and you just see what happens. You just see if people start living life a different way. And it might be pretty valuable for us. The results also showed that 39% of respondents actually own blue light blocking glasses because of the amount of time they watch screens. And nearly 80% say that it helps for those that do have a pair. So maybe grab a pair of those and then turn all your electronics off for a little while. That's my idea. That's my solution to a problem Let me know what yours is. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. Thrilled to be with you today. I saw this in the news. Kanye West explaining why he interrupted Taylor Swift all those years ago at the VMAs, took over her acceptance speech of an award in 2009. And the explanation may cause a couple people to get confused, especially people who believe in, I don't know, like God or religion. Apparently, Kanye West said that it was God who told him to do it. He said in an interview with Nick Cannon on a podcast called Cannon's Class that God has a calling on all of us, and he uses it in different ways in a response to, why did you interrupt Taylor Swift's speech in 2009? Look, before I get too far into this, I want to continue to add the first kind of disclaimer statement that if Kanye West is having a mental breakdown of some kind, if he's struggling with mental illness, I want him to get help for it. I don't want to make fun of a guy who's ill, and yet he continues to claim that he's fine. He's running for president still. He's on the ballot some places. It's very intriguing, everything going on with him. And now apparently it was never his idea in the first place to interrupt Taylor Swift and take over her acceptance speech of an award, something that he was very harshly criticized for, but that God cared about that. Just as a aside here, I would be very curious as to the values of Kanye West's version of God. And as a Catholic person who's been taught a few things about why and how God operates in our lives, he doesn't usually, in anything I've been taught, weigh in on things like a VMA award or tell someone like a Kanye West to make sure to get up on the microphone and say that Beyonce deserved the award and not Taylor. That seems like the kind of thing he'd beg himself out of. That's just me, or not even need to beg himself out of. And yet that's what Kanye said. He continued while talking about this incident. He said, I would have been sitting in the back and they would have made it the first award and he wouldn't have made it so ridiculous. This is Kanye's decision. He wouldn't have acted if not for the word of the Lord. Because I had never heard of this person before, and Single Ladies is one of the greatest videos of all time. And I guess that part then confuses me, because when he says he'd never heard of Taylor Swift before, and that the Single Ladies video that he went up and defended was obviously important, that apparently that is not, him. Maybe he didn't hear about Taylor Swift up until that award show, because that was also the desires of the Lord. I'm so uncomfortable as I continue to say that sentence as someone who is religious, and yet these are things he actually said. Right now, God is giving me the information, and he ain't giving me no other information, so that means he wants me to say this right now. That is Kanye even explaining the moment. Apparently, when Nick Cannon asked the question, God yet again communicates with Kanye what to say in the interview itself. I'm so confused. Like, this has to be mental illness, right? There's no other thing this can be. I know Kanye recently made a much more faith-based album that he put out. So I know that he's been leaning, I guess, more in the direction of being a faithful person. And while doing that, you're then describing the person who you now believe to be the creator of the world, the creator of the universe, as someone who also cares that Beyonce is more recognized at the 2009 VMAs than Taylor Swift, who at the time you had not heard of. And that even in this moment, while doing this interview on a podcast, you want to make sure that everyone knows that you're, a real life Moses or what have you, but you're only operating in the world of music. I don't understand any of the positions here. And I guess if I wasn't worried before that it's actually mental illness, I am certainly worried now after that answer from Kanye, because any other alternative is actually more upsetting, more disappointing for any human being to go the road of God as an excuse, as opposed to it being an earnest answer that just probably isn't accurate. And that's just me. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe at some point, whenever I do get to meet our Lord, he will tell me that he did have a feeling about the 2009 VMAs, and I will have to apologize to all involved. I can't see that happening. So let's just move on. And we only have a little bit left before another break. The average NFL fan will watch 18 hours of commercials in order to just see 6.5 hours of action this season. A new study showed that you are likely to watch 18 hours of commercials during a typical NFL season. That is compared to just 6 hours and 26 minutes of the actual game footage. A new study shows that maybe we all just have way too much tolerance, or maybe that's why the world of like Netflix and whatnot are so popular. And this is according to 5/8/30. The runtime of a typical NFL broadcast is 3 hours and 23 minutes. Of that, only about 25% is actually the stuff that you're looking for the most. That's spread out over a 20-minute commercial break, 20 different commercial breaks to get 50 minutes of just spots. The average amount of actual game time, 18 minutes. That is nuts. I don't even think that I have noticed that as a guy that watches NFL games. So now I'm going to be utterly aware of it, and it's probably going to ruin the NFL for me. So maybe this is another study that could have waited till 2021. I just needed no more bad news. I didn't need to be that aware that the amount of time that's actually sport and the amount of time that's not sport is so much different than I thought. And yet now here we are. Now I can't ever forget this. According to sportsfacts.org, the average NFL fan watches 4.2 hours of football each week. I don't even want to think about the amount of commercials. Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in. Talk.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, and I am thrilled this story exists still. I don't know that Nancy Pelosi is thrilled it still exists, but I want to dive into more Nancy audio because, you know, it's Nancy Pelosi, and she did something that she can't explain no matter how hard she tries. It's just not gonna ring true for a lot of us. Here is the conversation she had with reporters today as far as the salon gate, whatever you want to call it, the blowout gate hairdo that she got at a closed salon in San Francisco that she is not supposed to be inside of, not supposed to be maskless inside of, not supposed to be getting a haircut inside of, all those different things. Here is how she told reporters that it's not her fault. She was set up, darn it.
When they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
All right, so let me walk you through the logic here, the way that I understand it being provided to me. And I'm not telling you that it is logic. I'm just telling you that's what's actively happening in the mind of one Nancy Pelosi. She is a government official, a person who has advocated a bunch of times for the reshutting down of our economy, the reshutting down of so many different things that exist within our communities so that we can get a handle on COVID-19. She is in San Francisco, an area in which the government there has said you're not allowed to operate an indoor salon right now. That has to stay closed. You can do some outdoor haircutting, but nothing can happen indoors. And she didn't check any of the government decision-making that's gone on in the area. She trusted the salon owner and the salon owner only, and she was duped, darn it. It shouldn't be her job as a person that works in the Congress to check on whether or not it is advised right now or allowed right now by the local government to get a haircut and a blowout inside a salon that you're texting someone who you've been to for years, by the way. It's not her gig to check on those kind of rules. She has to trust the establishment. It makes no sense, but she continues.
We have to get our country moving again. And
I got to stop it again because that one little sentence right there is my favorite sentence she spoke, maybe. Because I think there's somebody that agrees with her, and it's the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and that's why he advocated to have things reopen and why he doesn't want the economy shut down. He said,
we have to get our country moving again.
Oh, wait, was that Nancy? I thought that was Donald. Anyway, go ahead, continue.
And I will not let this subject take away from the fact that we have 180,000 plus people who have died from this virus since we passed.
And then there you go. There's going to be a lot more comments about the seriousness of the illness and how no one is taking it seriously, how we all need to realize that our health is at risk and we're doing everything we can to protect ourselves and Donald Trump has failed, blah, 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 blah. That's a bunch of the answer there. She's not going to let this story distract from her goal of continuing to be a hypocrite on an almost daily basis.
I said that's an answer I'm going to answer. That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to answer. Do you have any questions about the fact that people are dying, that schools need to open, and the rest? I feel your question and your question are an opportunity, and I thank you for them. An opportunity to say they should. There's more to this that I'm not going into.
Okay, hold on. We got to stop again because now I love it. Now we go down another rabbit hole that the president has often ridiculed. I think the stroke gate or anything else is an example of that, where he says some things that people don't understand. He's not giving you all the facts. He's giving you some of them because he's a liar. But yet, here we go. Let's have Pelosi do it.
They should. There's more to this that I'm not going into as to the motivation of a salon to say to me, yes, come in, and then they go from there. It was clearly a setup.
Yeah, it's clearly a setup. It was, it's a hoax. It was a conspiracy. It was a attempt to do something like, I don't know, impeach a guy for no reason other than politics. There's a bunch behind the curtain. You don't understand, people. That's Pelosi saying that.
I take responsibility for falling for a setup by a neighborhood salon that I've gone to for years. And that's really what it is.
I love the fact that she adds that, too. And I have to interrupt every single moment of this audio that she said that she's been going there for years. Because really, to me, that's the tipping point where she's actually saying, I never thought I'd get caught. She's not saying that has any relevance as to whether or not she should have gone. The fact that she goes there for years is irrelevant to whether or not they're allowed to be open right now and whether or not she's allowed to go. None of that impacts anything. And she would know she's literally one of the politicians that would be responsible for creating rules like this and advocating for rules like this. So she would be fully aware of what is and isn't appropriate in normal standards.
So, again, I think we should use it as an opportunity to say there's so many people. I don't know where you all get your hair cut or whatever it is, but we have a wealth of people who are engaged in these services. And again, the state and the city, depending on the incidence of infection in those areas, decide how they will function.
I love when she says there's a wealth of people that do this because it almost started to feel like a commercial for the e-salon. She's like, you guys should go to the e-salon. Go meet with my stylist. What? You still can't go? I didn't know. I still haven't checked on that. By the way, the salon owner, the e-salon owner, her name is Erica Caius. She did the Tucker Carlson show, and she talked a little bit about how unfair this all is.
How do you feel about seeing the most powerful woman in America come into your salon in violation of the rules she supports, get caught, and then blame you for it?
To be honest, it was more hurtful just to see her come in, and especially not wearing the mask. That's what really got to me. And I just thought about, my staff and people not being able to work and make money and provide for their families. And if she's in there comfortably without a mask and feeling safe, then why are we shut down? Why am I not able to have clients come in?
Can anybody answer that question? Can Nancy Pelosi answer that question? If she feels safe, if she feels comfortable going through an in-store visit like that, an in-salon visit like that, why can't other people? I don't think anybody can. And then you check the news, you're like, oh, what are people talking about? Probably Nancy is all over the TV. No, you got Attorney General Barr a bunch of places. Then you also got this audio of Trump from the other day that to me it's very interesting because he does say, I guess, kind of, that maybe you should try voting twice. But I think he's trying to make a point about how this is possible as opposed to telling people to do it. And the news coverage is just, Trump tells supporters to break the law.
Are you confident in that system?
Well, they'll go out and they'll vote, and they're going to have to go and check their vote by going to the poll and voting that way, because if it tabulates, then they won't be able to do that. So let them send it in and let them go vote. And if their system's as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote.
So the news coverage is saying that Trump tells supporters to vote twice, vote by mail and vote in person. And I think he's trying to establish what could be a problem with this voting system. And it's the fact that if you go and vote in person and send in in the mail version of the vote too, how difficult is it going to be to weed out the in the mail ones that are counted much later than the ones that are counted in person? I think the point of the message is that, but the reality of the news coverage is just Trump is telling all supporters to break the law because he's evil. And yet Nancy Pelosi is to be forgiven because she got confused. This makes no sense to me. In other news, and I like this a lot because I'm a fan of the Billy Joel. I don't know if you are. By the way, I think he likes to go by Bill Joel Now I've heard that some places. I don't know if he still performs under Billy Joel, though. I assume he does. But Bill Joel is how he likes to be referred to in person. He does not sell the front row of his seats. Doesn't do it at all. I guess he hasn't been doing it for years. And somebody recently asked him why. And I guess the reason is kind of interesting. He said aside from wanting to defeat all the scalpers who obviously sell those seats for a premium amount of money, Billy also got bored watching just rich people sit there, kind of stare at him and not have as much fun in the concert as, say, everybody else that's going to a Billy Joel concert. So what does he do with the front row? He finds people with the worst seats in the stadium, and he has his staff bring them up to the front row because he believes that those are the real fans. And I guess part of this came out because his daughter might have said something on social media about it, but that is fantastic. I didn't know that about Billy. I'm a fan. Check out the song Vienna. It's quite good if you don't know, and it gets performed on all kinds of TV shows, the singing competitions, and nobody even knows it's Billy Joel. You got to kind of coach them to get there. But yeah, Billy Joel decides not to sell the front row of any of the seats to his concerts and instead gives them to his real core fans who know all the words to We Didn't Start the Fire. That's probably the test. If you can sing all the words, you can sit in the front, bud. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. A quick break and a little bit more from me.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I am entertained by silly, ridiculous things every so often. And one of those silly, ridiculous things, at least to me, is a now viral video of a parrot at the British Zoo. Yes, I'm going this road. Why, Craig? Why do you think that this is interesting to talk about on the radio? Well, the reason this parrot has gone viral, its name is Chico, by the way, is because apparently just all day long it sings Beyonce songs and people are loving it. This is what it sounds like to walk up to a parrot at a zoo that's partway through a song by Beyonce, If I Were a Boy.
If I was a boy?
That is a parrot. Look at it go for the second song. The second note, that is fantastic to me. I could watch that all day long. I don't know if you could listen to it, but it's just hanging out at the zoo. I don't know why it chose Beyonce. Probably Kanye West told her to. And this Chico parrot this is all it does. It just sings and sings and sings and then goes to sleep. The other parrots probably hate it, though, because I got to be honest, if you ever have a friend or a family member that gets one song stuck in their head, and I'm actually doing this to my wife right now, and it's terrible. I hate every part of what I'm about to admit on the air. I'm ashamed I led myself down this road because I don't want to be here. But my wife's name is Betty, and Taylor Swift has a new song called Betty that's all over the radio, and I now know lyrics to it because, again, defending myself here, my wife's name is the same one as the song, and I sing it probably every day, and the wife is throwing shoes at me now. She can't handle it, and I imagine that's what's happening with this parrot, too. But we all know you get somebody who's got a song stuck in their head, and they become the most annoying person on earth. Although I love it. I'm entertained now. I imagine the zoo workers feel the same way I do, or the same way my wife does about me, is you eventually get sick of it. You got to teach her something else, but probably she won't learn. Again, Kanye knows. They all know that Beyonce's the best. A woman also went viral on social media for sharing a photo or a video of her dad and his ridiculous homemade snack decisions. One person calling it a crime against food. What does this guy do? Well, and by the way, it's just like a video shot in the corner. I'll put it up on some social media pages so you can see it. He eats tortilla chips with a paintbrush, and he slowly and methodically uses the paintbrush to remove all of the salt from the tortilla chips. That is serial killer-esque level of like specificity in the way you do your snacking. And I just wonder, even though, social media is enthralled by this guy and his just chip at a time, he pulls it out of the bag, he's brushing one side, flips it over, brushes the other, just doing as much as he can to get as much salt off. I'm just curious how you'd react if this happened in person. Like, say you were on a business meeting somewhere, maybe you pick a Mexican restaurant or something to have a nice meal, and they put the tortilla chips there first and foremost, and right as it happens, some guy pulls a paintbrush out of his pocket and just slowly starts getting all that salt off. I gotta eat this chip, but I gotta make sure it's healthy. That is crazy, but it's also awesome. And I just love the fact that the daughter has outed him now and that everybody has very strong opinions, although there is at least one user on social media that said, this is genius. I am stealing this technique and using it tonight. But I don't understand. This is I think there's saltless versions of these chips that you can get. You can go out and live that life if you want to. Speaking of which, actually, social media also reviewed some of the foods that you should not microwave. These are things that are ruined if you go the microwave version of this. And I thought all of these choices were fairly interesting because out of only one, I think I've done the other four. But the number 5 worst food to microwave, according to the internets, is steak. That would be wrong. If you had someone that's like reheating steak from the next day and they're just popping it in the microwave or even doing it at work, well, the fanciness would certainly be noticed. If I had a guy halfway through the workday just plop down a steak and consume it, that he brought from home, there would be a fancy element to that. But once it went in the microwave, it would be tremendously terrible. And obviously, it's going to ruin a lot of the taste there. Number 4 is spaghetti. You should never, ever microwave spaghetti, apparently. Number 3, French fries. They're something that tastes terrible. Honestly, French fries are a one-off food. I don't think that leftover French fries really make sense ever. I think that if you're saving your French fries for another visit, you should probably just eat less French fries because I don't think they get improved in any cooking version a second run. Number 2 is fried chicken, which is crazy. Everybody microwaves fried chicken. They say you shouldn't. You should bake it instead to get most of the taste back. But come on, people. And then number 1 is pizza. The number 1 item here, it says not to microwave ever, is a couple slices of pizza. You should reheat them in a pan or an oven. That takes so long. Why would I do that? I don't even think that I would wait to microwave the pizza. I just eat it cold. But the reason why, I guess, is mostly because the crust is going to be all ruined. But let's be honest here. I mean, the right decision with pizza is not to heat it at all. If it's cold, you just eat it. You don't have to go the road of microwaving or cooking or any of that stuff. Here, wait, you know what? One more time, I want to get back to the Beyonce parrot because I just find this so entertaining. I want a parrot now. Like, I actually want one, and I know that mine would probably just sing the song Betty by Taylor Swift all day long, and then my wife would feel outnumbered in even a terrible way. But that's just so awesome. All right, let me dive into some weird news because I got a few minutes left that I wasn't expecting, and I've been sitting on this story for a while. And yeah, this is me now diving into weird news. For anyone that's like, you've been playing music from a parrot for a while, well, a new study says that we might be confused about where life came from. And I love this. This is a deep dive by a publisher named The Frontiers in Microbiology. They say that there might be bacteria that originally came from Mars to our planet, and that might be how life on Earth got started, not the other way around. We always go there and look for life there. Maybe they sent it here. That is an intriguing idea for a TV show of some kind, I think. I think we got to get a bunch of people to star in this. This is the next generation version of whatever you want it to be. But there's a deep dive into all the different explanations of how we can figure out what this bacteria is, why we know it came from there and not here. They're calling it Conan the bacterium, and it might be the reason that we are all here on this planet right now. I think that's tremendously interesting information just because, again, the thought process has always been that the aliens are there and we're the first, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe this whole time we've been very confused and we're actually the ones who sprung up somewhere else. And I actually have another question for you, too. I saw this. Kathy Lee Gifford may be making a movie. There is a new movie coming out in the romantic comedy stylings of one Kathy Lee Gifford. The movie is called Then Came You. It's supposed to be out in about a month. It co-stars Craig Ferguson and Elizabeth Hurley. Do you have interest in seeing Kathy Lee Gifford in a romantic comedy? It sounds maybe a tiny bit autobiographical. Kathy Lee plays a widow who's traveling the world with her husband's ashes when she meets a Scottish innkeeper who changes her life forever. This is according to The Hollywood Reporter. I don't know. I might be interested in seeing this. I guess it sounds like the kind of thing that if there's not a lot of other movies on, if you haven't gotten to the theaters yet, maybe Craig Ferguson, Elizabeth Hurley, and Kathy Lee Gifford starring in a romantic comedy is just your kind of jam. But that's an interesting thing that's also happening in 2020. Nothing beats the parrot for me, or maybe this guy. Actually, you know what? I think I closed every hour of the show today with this, so why not do it again? The chicken wing guy for president.
Lincoln has the opportunity to be a social leader in this country. We have been casually ignoring a problem that has gotten so out of control that our children are throwing around names and words without even understanding their true meaning and treating things as though they're normal.
How are we living?
I go into nice family restaurants and I see people throwing this name around and pretending as though everything is just fine.
What is he talking about?
I'm talking about boneless chicken wings.
Of course he is.
I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Sir,
excuse me.
Please, silence in the back.
I propose that we rename boneless wings in the city of Lincoln. We can call them Buffalo-style chicken tenders.
make chicken great again. That guy's narrative. Thank you so much. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.